All right, we're back. We are COMP397. That's web game programming in the fall 2018 semester, and that's week 12, part 1 of our broadcast. We're going to incorporate some web fonts this time around into our game, do some minor refactoring as well. So yeah, I've got the project. It's called COMP397-F2018 lesson 12. I put that up on GitHub with the same name under Centennial College. And I've already started running it, the last version of the project, up here on our codes. We have this kind of thing. Last week we added it in a coin and some explosion animations, which are very interesting. We still got lots of work to do in terms of making this a real game. A couple things that happen is the plane will fire bullets even when I'm not in its path. Right? So when the player's in its path, it still fires bullets. Who cares? We'll just keep firing bullets. And that's not really cool. I mean, it shouldn't be like that. Also, you know, I can, lots of clouds. Clouds kill me very easily. I don't have a way of, you know, improving my life score and my life values. Like, you know, it doesn't matter how much score I have. Typically, games like this, retro games like this, you get kind of like a boost if you get a certain number of points or some kind of pickup or something. I don't have any of that in there. We could add something like that in pretty simply. And then, of course, all this stuff. We got a high score of 1200 and my game over, but I don't have a very cool font. It looks pretty ugly. So what I want to do is start off with web fonts. So how do I include web fonts in the game? Well, what I've done is, again, under assets, there are fonts. And there's a font that I've been using called Doc51, again, for demonstration purposes. So Doc51 is a TrueType font, and I want to use this custom TrueType font as opposed to Consolus, the ones I've been using for all the labels and everything else. And that's pretty ugly. That was just a placeholder font anyway. So there is a online converter for web fonts called Squirrel, right? Squirrel, which kind of creates there's a web font generator. You guys can go there, please. By the way, this will take any web font or any TrueType font that you own, and it can convert it into web compatible font that you can use on your site. Okay, so this is the thing. I'm going to, again, you should have my font, my TrueType font that I gave you. Under lesson 12, there is, if you want to test this out, there is a assets fonts folder, and there's my TrueType font. All right, so it says upload fonts. So I want to upload my font. I want to kind of target that one. I want to go into my desktop. I want to pick that font that's inside my assets, which is this TrueType font. And what this little program does up online is it converts, and again, for free, this TrueType font into a web-compatible set of other files that you can use and place in your CSS, and then that you can use in your code. So that's the first thing we're going to do to make our game look a little bit better. A few changes to make our game look nicer. I think you know, a nice custom font always helps. You can also use you know, Google fonts and so on as well. That'll also work the similar way. We'll talk about those two methods. All right, so I got my font. Okay, I'm going to kind of cut this up, and I'm going to go into our under desktop. We're going to find our application. There it is, and inside of our assets fonts folder, I'm going to just drop in that zip file that I got from Squirrel. There it is. Okay, so there's my zip file. Again, one thing I should probably do is give you the link for Squirrel, this font generator here. Here it is. And I'm going to put that up on Slack for us. So one thing we've been doing today is some play testing. Again, for the play testing lab, it's worth 5% of your final grade. That is due tonight at midnight. So please ensure that it's done and you hand it in. It's pretty much free marks as long as you get it done. Now, what I want to see for next week is if you can incorporate some of that play test information to make some changes to your game. Some. It'd be nice. You get direct feedback. You get some direct feedback for at least 7 other people from different groups to kind of give you some feedback to say, hey, I like this or I didn't like this. And then you can report on that in your PowerPoint presentation of the last week. You can say, hey, look, here's what we got from our feedback from the game. So you have this full experience, almost like going through the whole process of making games and so on. All right, so we've got our generator. I'm going to just extract that here. So I'm going to kind of extract the data that we got. And actually what Font Squirrel does is it provides, oh, it's probably because it's open. It provides different files. Why? Sorry, because it's open. It provides different files here. So it gives you a version of an HTML file with a test to see what it looks like. So it kind of gives you something that looks like this. So it shows you the font, a preview of what the font is going to look like in an HTML page. That's what it does. This is the font I want to use. Okay, so it comes from a TrueType font. And the next thing it'll do is it also gives you a WAF and a WAF2 file, as well as a CSS file and a generator config file to how this all works. Okay, so kind of additional files that you may or may not use. We can look at those inside of our project. If I look here, I have this TrueType font, and inside there I also have this other stuff. So I want to take a second to get these other fonts out of there. This WAF and WAF2, these are web font compatible files. I want to move these into my fonts folder. Okay, and then I want to look at my CSS to get a sense of what my CSS would look like. So this CSS here is something that I need to incorporate into my CSS, my game CSS. So I'm going to just take this whole thing, copy it, and I'm going to go into my CSS file, which is inside of my content folder. And at the top, before I do everything else, I'm going to slap that code in there. Now, this isn't going to work because two things. It says my URL is doc51 webfont.waf2, okay, and so on. That's wrong. First of all, I don't want my files to be named that, and I want to make it simpler. So I'm going to call my font family doc51. You can call yours whatever you want, but this is what I do. I kind of simplify my font family name. This is the friendly name that your web font will be known for, okay? Next, I want to change this part too. I want to make this doc51 WAF2 and doc51 WAF. Yes, those are the two things I definitely want. Save that. I'm also, this is in the wrong location. It's, if we're looking in game and I need to go up to where it's going to be, I've got to go up one to the main route, down into assets, into fonts. So it's going to be up one, assets, fonts, or I can just simply specify, yeah, I better do that actually. Assets, fonts. And then it's going to be WAF2. But by the way, like I said, I want to change the name of those files so that it's like this, doc51. All right, and I'll do the same thing, the same beginning part, which is going to be here. I've renamed them, at least in the CSS file. And then what I need to do is the actual fonts inside the font folder, which are right here. I need to change those names too. So I can rename this one because I just don't like the name. It's just a little bit too long. Like that. And same thing goes with this one. Rename. This is just because from the the file we got. And I don't need this anymore. I've kind of done everything I need, so I can hopefully I can delete this, move to recycle bin, maybe. Or maybe it will prevent me because I'm using it somewhere else. I might have it open somewhere. That's fine. I'll delete it later. Or I can just crash my code. That's always good. I like that. I like when this happens to my Visual Studio Code. It's amazing. Continue. Yes. If you allow it, I will take it. doesn't allow it. Okay. Yeah, this I'd like to get rid of too. Let's see if I can delete that part. Am I allowed? That will allow me to do that part. Okay, good. So I got rid of the zip file. All right, so let's test it out and see if it works. So I'm going to save everything. I'm going to go back to my my code and notice there's nothing different here. So that's great that I did that, but I need to use it. And the way to use that is inside of my label file. So if I go to scripts and if I go to objects and if I go to label, that's the first place I want to change it. I want to change it in here. So label TS, right? If you notice what it does is it takes the label and it takes the font family and font color and, you know, whatever I give it is going to produce. Great. But where I give it to it is inside my scene files. Okay. Where I produce it is inside my scene file. So if I go to scenes and if I go to my play scene, then you can see that down in here, I say that I want to make a font that says, you know, for my objects are going to be in here. Also in my start scene, I have mail pilot. So this is my mail pilot and type is consolus. Let's change that to doc51. That's where it's going to be. And also in my game over scene, the over scene, that's also going to change to doc51. So any place I have consolus, I want to change that so it says different stuff. Now it's not in here. Here it is, doc51. And it's also going to be inside of my scoreboard manager, right? Because I also have, if you remember, under scripts, I have managers, and then there is a scoreboard. And the scoreboard manager also uses consolus, if I'm not wrong, right here. And I can change this to doc51. So I literally just replaced consolus with my new font that I defined inside my CSS file. There we go, doc51. We're good to go. And we're going to save this. And just to make sure, we're going to save all. Right, save all and close everything else that we're not using. And now we should see this. How's that look? To me, it looks a little better, right? It's a little bit smoother. Now, this is a problem. This file is actually a built-in, remember, it's a hard-coded button that I'm using here for this thing. And that's not cool. The fonts actually look pretty good for even for my score and lives. That looks okay. Maybe I could even make the mail pilot kind of start screen a little bit nicer with a nicer score, right? So that's something that I can do. All right, so that's kind of cool. And this is game over, the game over screen, but the restart button looks kind of ugly. I need to fix this, right? Because that just doesn't work. This button and the score and everything doesn't look good. But that means, you know what it means, right? It means that I got to rejig my sprite sheet again, right? To modify it with my new start button and everything else. Not a big deal. I mean, I can definitely just modify the sprite sheet too. That's another option. But let's do it the long way, just because. So this is the first part. Our web font works. And you know what? This is a great place to put it up on GitHub. We've incorporated this web font. But the only problem is I also have that extra folder I want to get rid of. And it's not letting me do that right now. But what I will do is I'll say added doc 51 web font. What I did. And I'm going to push this to the new repository. Okay, week 12. So that's how you do web fonts. Pretty straightforward stuff. Web Squirrel or font squirrels, definitely a way to do that. You can also use Google Fonts. Okay, so before we move on to fix the other problems, like this problem here, we can also use Google Fonts. If I go Google Fonts, which is like fonts.google.com, then you can use any other font that you feel is more suitable for your game than the one that you're using now. There's some really cool ones. Some of them that might suit you a lot more than the one that you already have. And there's tons of them. You could certainly look them up. And let's suppose I like this one. I don't know why. Let's suppose I like this font for my game instead of the other one. And I wanted to use this one. Let's incorporate this one in there too. Okay, so this is called unlock regular. That's what it is. And you can kind of say, you know, popular pairings are these ones, but this is what I want to use, and this is 40 pixels. I want to select this font, right? And when I do that, I can go to one font family selected here on Google, and it says that I can embed. That's one way I can do it. I can embed it. I can also use this font family unlock stuff, right? Or I can use the @import, which is what we've already done, right? To use this thing in our code. I can also customize it. I can say which ones I want or whatever. And this is kind of the way it's done. So if you look here, there's two options. There's standard, which is a link to the font family, right? You can specify it in the CSS, which is the part you can do, or you can go to @import, and you can see that I can do this @import URL, right? And if you look at my CSS, let's take a look at that. So if I go to my current CSS, let's look at game.css. You can see that I'm using @fontface. All right, @fontface. So that's the one way to do it. The other one is the @import. So I could take this part @import. Okay. And then what I can do is once I do that, at the top of my code, inside my CSS, I could put that in here. I can say @import da-da-da-da. Here's my font family. It's called unlock. And then I could also specify another font face with font family unlock cursive. I could do that. I could use unlock, right? As soon as right inside my in my CSS rules, right? Well, let's take a look at using unlock instead of doc51. Okay, so that's another one. So instead of using, you know, my custom font within conversion and all that kind of stuff, let's just do it in my scene. Let's just change one scene and see what it looks like. So go to my start scene. And in my start scene, I have Mail Pilot and it's doc51, but we want to use unlock, right? And again, the way I know how to use this is because that's what it's called, right? @import family is unlock. Let's use that actually with a capital U. That would be good. How about that? And once I've done this with a capital U and I save it, and if I go back to my code, then it should show my new web font. All right. Now, this is, in my opinion, not a good font for my game. I like the other one more, right? But I'm just showing you that incorporating your web font into your game doesn't take much nowadays. However, here's something that does happen sometimes on a slow connection. Take a look at this font, right? Sometimes what you might get is a slow loading, a lazy loading thing happening where the web font doesn't show up immediately. Just saying, right? You might see like the regular Arial or something else that shows up, or sans serif, and then this will come up. Okay. So it's something you have to deal with. I personally like web fonts. I think they're good. But I definitely like my doc51 a lot more. And then one challenge that you have with web fonts is when you make buttons like this, then it's difficult to incorporate the web font in the button, right? Because you have to have, if I'm making a hard-coded button like a PNG or something, I have to have that font in my system to create that. It's just, you know, unless you're using other code, there's other tools that will incorporate web fonts too. Okay, so yeah, so let's change that one up. So again, the way to do that is I'm going to go to my desktop, and inside my files, I have my in my assets in here, right? Let's take a look. I don't have to change the positions or anything like that. Like literally everything stays the same. In my sprites, I have a sprite sheet, and if you look at it, it says texture map. My texture map, however, has the restart button and the start button that I created through Texture Packer. So that's what it looks like right now. This is what my sprite sheet looks like. I want to replace these two images. So there's a couple ways to do that. I could do it manually by going in here and modifying it, right? That's one way. Or sometimes it's not possible to do that. or in my images folder, I have these two images. Let's start with the start button. And luckily, it's a PNG, so I can go in here and modify the font. So it's not Consolus, it's actually Doc51. And you'd have to have the font that you want to try and make a web font in here. So let's just see. There's my Doc51. Here's start. I mean, again, I have this font, so that's why I can do this, right? I'm going to modify the button, and I'm going to do the same thing with my restart button. So restart. I just go in here and I want to change the font to Doc51, right? And just recenter everything so that it works a little bit nicer. Oops, there we go. So restart and start and save. One thing we haven't done with our UI is create different states. Like right now, what I do with my buttons is I hover over and I change the opacity of the font, right? That's what I do. But I could use animation, right? The animation is something I can build in. So when I hover over the button, I can swap the image to something else. For now, we're not going to do that. We're going to leave it as is and just change these out. So these changed, but my sprite sheet didn't. So I'm going to bring up Texture Packer. And my Texture Packer UI, when it comes up, no, I'm not going to do that yet. I want to bring up my recent project, which was this. I just called it Sprites. And notice that it did an update, right? Like this sprite sheet is something that I have to include, the restart button and the start button. And now, curious, let's just take a chance. If I remove these, right? And if I drag and drop the new ones, so here's my start and here's my restart. Here's the differences. If I just press publish, is that good enough, right? Does that produce the things I need, right? Because again, I mean, it does also the other stuff, but I don't care about the other stuff. All I care about is this image. Is it good enough? If it is, then we should see it here, right? If I refresh my screen, then I should see my image here, right? And I'm not seeing that image here. Can anyone tell me why? Well, first of all, let's take a look at where it was produced and where it got changed. So Texture Packer saves everything in the last location, and this saves it in my previous version of my code. So COMP397 inside of my F2018, and it's lesson 11. I want this to change to lesson 12 because I know that's the only thing that's different. There's lesson 12. And the same thing goes with this. So we can change this to lesson 12. That's what happened. And then let's try that again. Let's just publish the sprite sheet and save my file. Okay, cool. And let's see if it made a difference. And if I refresh my screen, do I get a change in this? And I do. This is not my new button. Right? So my button, I can see that my game looks, it's got renewed life now with my new font. Yay, it's really awesome. Not that awesome, but it's like, looks better. And if I die, good. But what if I want to get, see the restart button looks nice too. What if I want to get some other changes? I want to be able to, when I get 1,000 points, I want to get another life. How do I do that? Well, you should know now it's pretty simple to get that done. And if I go back to my code, let's take a look at my code for a second. And if I look at how I gain a life or points or anything in the first place, how do I do that? I do that inside of my manager's collision manager. All right, so there's my collision manager. And in my collision manager function, you can see that when I get hit by a coin, then I get 100 points. This is the perfect place for me to get extra lives. So I would put in like if, my points are greater than, percent 1,000 is equal to 0. So a percent meaning modulus. So if it's some kind of factor of 1,000, then I get a free life. Okay, and that's what it would be like. All right, so I can do that, and so every time I get 1,000, that's good. But I need to play another sound. some kind of sound that would make me better. So that's the way I would do it. I mean, it's not really that awesome, but that's the last thing that I recommend. I did make some changes. I modified my texture map and my restart button to align with my new font. So I'll say that. I'll say that modified textures to match new font. Right, so I did. And we're going to push it. I didn't stage them. Okay. I didn't stage it. How did that happen? Repeat. I'm not happy with that, but that is what it is, right? That is like terribly something that I missed. Okay, any questions around web fonts? Guys, that's all I have for you today. I don't want to do more. I could refactor and do way more refactorings and all that kind of stuff. I don't think it's necessary. What I want to do is give you back some of your time, maybe fix up the last part of your thing. And I want to go around. I want to take a look at some of your results, if you don't mind. I want to see if you've got your results in there. What is it showing you? What your plan is to fix these things. So that's it for today. We'll do more next week when we have time. Okay? Thanks so much, and we'll see you next week.